A rare moment of quiet. A perfect time for welcoming a new friend.
You and I are gonna have fun, you know?
But someone has followed her. Hello, darkness.
We're not happy to see old friends are. Faith, you run, he runs after you.
Faith.
Faith!
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there's a new Slayer in town.
And a new Buffy.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts, I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
And this week we will be getting into Season 3, Episode 3, Faith, Hope, and Trick.
Yes, indeed.
Which I'm not sure where that last part came from. I was like, is he saying that she's a trick? Like, wow.
No.
I mean, it is, he who must not be named, so.
That's
Anyway, how are you doing this, James?
5x5, B.
That's I hear you, dog. I hear you. 5x5, B. Which will probably make more sense if you watch this episode. Any news and notes or updates or anything?
No, not a one.
Not a one. Okay. Well,
Not a
we
one.
are a very interesting program. I don't know. You have anything you wanna talk about or anything, James?
No. Just you mentioned the title of the episode. I mean, once we get into it, I think it's pretty clear where the episode title comes from.
That's interesting because it wasn't clear to me.
Well, the episode introduces these two major and one semi-major character. Faith,
right?
Scott Hope, who becomes Buffy's kind of boyfriend over the next few episodes.
I didn't realize his last name was Hope.
And Mr. Trick.
Yeah, and Mr. Trick, who is hilarious.
Yes.
Probably one of my favorite, not major, but, kind of villain. But god dang, he's just hilarious.
He is. It just oozes charisma and charm.
And hilarity.
Yes. So.
All right. Well, why don't you sizzle us up some of those delicious dates and deets?
I will throw those into my cast iron and
a seasoned cast iron.
Yes, of course. Very well seasoned cast iron and sizzle those up for us. As previously stated, we are diving into Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 3, Episode 3, the 37th episode of the series overall, Faith, Hope, and Trick. Our episode director this week is James A. Contner, and our episode credited writer is David Greenwalt. Our original air date was October 13th, 1998 on the now defunct WB network. Our Nielsen rating was 3.9 million households when it first aired. So a little bit of a dip off for us there. It ranked 88 out of 125 original network primetime shows for the week, and 4th out of the 15 original primetime shows on the WB for that week. Our regular cast, as always, includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, Seth Green as Oz, and Anthony Stewart Head as Giles.
What do you think the three shows were that beat it?
On the WB at this WB at this time, I would imagine probably Dawson's Creek.
I forgot about Dawson's Creek at this time.
I didn't look to see what else was airing in 98 alongside, but I think Charmed was still on. Possibly Gilmore Girls. So yeah.
Probably those three.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I'll have a little more information next week. Not about Not about this episode, but about next week's episode. I'll do a
Okay.
little more research. Our guest stars include Christine Sutherland as Joyce, K. Todd Freeman as Mr. Trick, Fab Filippo as Scott, Jeremy Roberts as Kakistos, Eliza Dushku as Faith, and Armin Shimmerman as Principal Snyder. This is 3 episodes in a row for Joyce.
Right. When I saw her, I was like, oh my God, she's almost halfway to being a mother.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I kind of liked her in this episode.
Yeah, she acted more like she should act, you know.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
given,
I'm not saying it's all like, hugs and cuddles, we love Joyce now. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying I didn't hate her in this episode.
yeah, this is one of the few episodes I wasn't like, oh, you are such a horrible mother in person.
Yeah. Our episode synopsis this week reads Buffy's effort to settle into normal life is dashed when she is challenged by an ancient villain and his sidekick.
That is not accurate at all. I mean, I guess in a roundabout kind of sort of way it is, but it's not really.
In a very general episode synopsis way, it's accurate.
I guess. Mine reads, a charismatic slayer visits Sunnydale and wins over many of Buffy's friends. Meanwhile, 2 powerful vampires plot an attack. Which I would say that is way more accurate.
See, I don't always like your synopsises because I feel like they give away too much of the episode.
Yeah, sometimes they do. They absolutely sometimes do.
Yeah.
But and then yours a lot of times are sometimes
Just
they're just flat ass wrong, and it's like, who
I
did that? Did they even watch the episode?
I don't. I mean, I've had ones that like I strongly agree they're not great, but I don't know if any of them have just been flat out wrong. I feel like the ones I find are very broad, general
I don't know.
idea of the episode.
I think if you go back and listen to some of our older episodes, I think you'll find that there have been some where we're like, well, that's not accurate at all. And I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering. It's probably just my dementia kicking in.
On the plus side, you won't remember.
Right.
We open and Willow is kind of rambling to Oz outside Sunnydale High about how they're seniors now and they're allowed to go off campus for lunch, and she seems all excited about it, but it takes Xander and Cordelia and Oz kind of physically walking her off campus, and not very far off campus, but off campus into kind of a grassy area across
It was a grassy knoll.
a grassy knoll, um, where they proceeded to shoot JFK.
Yes. Well, Buffy was already set up with the rifle and the
Yes.
funny cowboy hat. And
Yeah.
they were like, what are you? And then just a bullet whizzed by their heads. And they're like, what the hell? And they turn around. JFK, half his head was gone.
Gone. Just gone.
Mhm.
So yeah, they walk across to this grassy area, kind of across from Sunnydale High, and Buffy's already there, and she's set up a lovely picnic lunch for them, and because as we all know, she's still expelled and forbidden from entering school grounds, and they all proceed to talk about Buffy's Martha Stewart-like skills. And Willow points out Scott Hope, who's approaching, and mentions that he's kind of had a thing for Buffy since last year. And
Which, did we ever see any evidence of that? Or
I don't remember.
okay.
I know there was a guy that wasn't there a guy last season that tried to ask her out, and she
Yeah, but it wasn't him. It wasn't
Wasn't
this
him?
kid. No.
um
Some goober guy.
and he he walks by and says hi to Buffy, and they all kind of it segues into them talking about Buffy and her mom having a meeting with Principal Snyder the next morning. Then we cut to that night, and we see a limo pull up through a drive-through restaurant by the name of Happy Burger, and in the back of the limo is Mr. Trick, very stylish, very charismatic man, and he's talking to another person who's kind of hidden in the shadows in the limo, and
Which I never did quite understand why they hid his identity in this first scene, because it's not like we knew who the fuck he was.
right, and the person in the shadows is talking about how he's gonna kill the Slayer and rip out her spine and yada yada, and we presume he's referring to Buffy, and as he's talking about how he's gonna kill the Slayer and suck the marrow from her bones, Mr. Trick Mr. Trick says he's hungry now, and he reaches through the window of the limo and grabs the kid working the drive-through window and pulls him into the limousine as they drive off.
Yeah, this poor fucking like teenage fucking kid who's just working like a $5 an hour burger job gets to be eaten.
Yeah.
By the way, later on we do find out that Mr. Trick is in fact a pedophile.
Wow.
No, I mean we literally find out he's a pedophile.
When?
I'll talk about it when it comes to it.
Okay. Yeah, he vamps out and he pulls this poor schlub working the drive-through window out the drive-through window and into the limousine window and feeds on him as the limo is driving away. I should mention that we do catch a glimpse of who Mr. Trick is talking to, but all we see is a cloven hand.
Yeah, literally like a horse hoof hand.
Yeah,
It looks frankly stupid.
and that's our cold open. Credits roll.
Yeah. Question, going back to the beginning of the cold open. At this point, they've been in school for several days, if not weeks, in their senior year. But they're Willow acts as though this is the first time she's gone off campus to eat lunch.
It's Willow. It probably is.
I don't know. She's just acting like it was the first day of school because she's like, "Oh, we're seniors now. We're expected to go off campus to eat lunch and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, haven't you been in school for like at the very least several days now, if not a good couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think too much of it. Like I said, it's Willow. I'm sure she hasn't been off campus yet, especially since it took Xander, Cordelia, and Oz to like physically move her off campus.
Yeah, which I was like, wow, assault much? I mean, just grabbing people and shit. But anyway. So anyway, we come back and Buffy's having another dream, and of course it involves Angel. And they're at the bronze and they're dancing, and for some reason all of her friends.
Who does it involve?
What is his name? Starts with an. What? Wow, I don't even know where this comes from every week. For some reason, all of her friends are sitting at a table, just staring blankly at. Oh, I enjoy the curly, the curly straw there, my friend. That is pretty cool. But they're all just sitting there watching them like dance. I don't know. It just seemed weird. They were all just like blank staring at them, and they're dancing, and she's talking about how she misses him and stuff. And then her ring falls off that he had given her, and he picks it up and he starts squeezing it really hard, and his hand's bleeding, and he's like, "You killed me," and she says something else, and he goes, "Go to hell!" And I was like, "Damn, that escalated." And like then he starts bleeding like in the place where she would have stabbed him with the sword, and blah 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 blah. And of course she wakes up startled, and the last thing she sees is he's like, after he screams "Go to hell," then it goes back to him again, the camera does, and now he looks kind of like a zombie, like all chewed up and fucked up, and he's like, "I have," and like evil laughter, and then she wakes up, and she wakes up to mom like right in her face, and she's like, "Good morning, sunshine. You ready to go see the beast?" And it's like, whoa, let me wake up, woman. And so then we cut to Principal Snyder's office, and he's informing Buffy that she will be readmitted into school, but she has to do all these bullshit tasks, which apparently I'm assuming she actually never does, except for the makeup tests that she had to take.
Right.
But all these other little things he tried to put in place apparently never happened, because you never really hear about them ever again. So, but what it boils down to is the school board had actually overruled him, and Buffy kind of rubs it in and everything, and her and Joyce leave the office having pretty much owned Professor Principal Snyder, and she's going to be back in school.
And this was the first time in this episode where I was kind of like, okay, I don't hate Joyce right now.
Yeah, because
she was like
yeah,
cause she's like Buffy like completely like tears Snyder a new one about how like the school board overruling him like means he's ineffective at his job and everything else. And
yeah.
Joyce never once tries to stop her, and then in fact gets up and is like, I think what my daughter is trying to say is yeah, nah, 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 nah.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
I was like,
Hey,
okay,
Joyce.
Joyce.
Points,
I was like,
points, points for trying, I guess.
right. I was like, all right, I don't hate you right now.
So then the Buff and the Wilster go to the library, and because Giles had asked to meet him there, and Buffy's like, "You think he's mad?" And Willow's like, "No, because when he is, he makes this clucking sound with his tongue." And then Giles appears behind them. He's heard the whole thing, and anyway, he's wanting Buffy's help because he's wanting to perform this binding spell on a Kathla's tomb, I guess you want to call it, to make sure like maybe it can never be opened again. So he's having to get like details of like how she defeated him, and like the final minutes of the battle of defeating him and Angel and everything. And Buffy pretty much answers his questions, but leaves out the fact that Angel's soul had actually been restored right before she had to kill him, send him to hell to save the world. And then Buffy has to rush out because she has one of those makeup exams. This one's for English, and Willow talks to Giles, trying to persuade him that she can help with the spell and all that, and kind of reveals that she's been doing a few minor spells here and there, levitating, what you say, feathers and fire onto ice. But she's like, I won't do that on the bedspread anymore, and things of that nature. And she's like, "You're not mad at me, are you?" And he's like, "No, of course not. If I were, I'd be making a clucking sound with my tongue." And then we cut to the bronze, and we have that oh so 90s bronze style music playing. Now, this
our bronze band is actually Darling Violetta.
Yes, I knew I recognized them immediately. Um, so,
Well, they will go on to write the theme song for Angel.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I do enjoy
Yeah.
that theme song. It's a good theme song. As you know, you can tell since we play it all the time. um, so, so anyway, they're at the bronze, and now I noticed something as the camera's panning into the bronze. First, it shows the sign outside the bronze, then it goes inside the bronze, and it pans through the crowd and the band and everything, and you can see Faith. That we haven't met her yet, but you can see her dancing on the dance floor. Let's go back and watch it sometime if you're bored. Just that little clip right there, because she is clearly not dancing to whatever the fuck music is playing. Like she's just doing her own thing, and it's not timed with anything. It's pretty fucking funny. But anyway, Willow and Oz are sucking face big time, and Buffy shows up and she's like, "Oh, don't let me interrupt," and she's got drinks, which is clearly booze, underage booze, at the bronze. So she's
Sure.
she reveals that she passed her English makeup test, and she's happy to be getting her life back in order and everything, and then old Scott shows up and starts laying down some lines on her. He's interested, and asks her to dance, but she kind of excuses her way out of it. Makes some excuses up and stuff. And he's like, "Well, I'll I'll go hang out by the dance floor, and then if you change your mind, mosey on over." And Oz is like, he should get points for using the word mosey. And so Cordy and Xander come over at that point and join the group. And Cordy, how does she, I forget what how she says that about Faith. She's like Miss I don't know. Miss Slut basically is what she's saying about Faith, who we haven't met yet. She's like, look how she's acting. And
Slutorama.
Yeah, Miss Slutorama. Yeah, she's like, look at how she's acting, and that guy she's dancing with, he's like doing straight up like Saturday Night Fever fucking disco dancing, and she's like, when's the last time he danced? Was it to KC and the Sunshine Band? And so Buffy starts watching closely, and he's definitely dancing very strangely. And then he and this girl leave together. And she's like, yeah, I don't think there's anything about him that's into the sunshine. So she follows after. She gets outside, and the gang joins her. And they're like, where do you think they are? And then they hear some ruckus in the distance. So they head over there, and indeed, this is a vampire. And he grabs this young woman by the throat, and he's like, this isn't gonna hurt. And she's like, yeah, it is. And she just starts fucking wrecking him, just beating his ass. And I think it's Xander. Is it Xander who says, huh, I guess there's another
Oz.
Oh, it's Oz. Okay. He says, I guess there's another Slayer in town. And so she's kicking his ass, and then she's like, she obviously knows who Buffy is, because she's like, oh, I got this bee. Or Buff. She says, I got this Buff. And then she's like, can I borrow that? And she grabs Buffy's steak, and then she finishes off the vampire and tosses the steak to him, or back to Buffy. And she's like, thanks, Bee. Couldn't have done it without you. And so bada bing, we have now met, well, she hasn't given her name yet, I don't think, but we have met Faith, the new Slayer, who, if anyone's confused, this would be Kendra's replacement. We know how Kendra came to be.
She introduces herself in that scene.
Oh, does she? Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is Kendra's replacement. If you recall, our horrible acted supposed Jamaican Slayer who was killed last season has now been replaced, and this is Faith. And we cut back inside the Bronze. And why don't you take over for a little bit here, James?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. Faith's telling sordid stories about her slaying to the gang, and how since her watcher was called to England for a retreat, she wanted to take an opportunity to sneak away and meet Buffy and compare notes. And um, she sorry, she
Did you have a stroke just now?
I did have a stroke just now. And she is under the presumption that Giles um is also away at the retreat, which he's not. And Cordelia chimes in, kind of like it's just occurred to her that Faith must have been called as a Slayer when Kendra died. And
Which is like, yeah, duh. Buffy's not dead.
right. And Faith wants Buffy to share some of her stories, and ask Buffy what her toughest kill was. And she flashes back to when she had to kill Angel, but then she starts talking about the three. And then Xander kind of cuts her off and tells Faith that he wants to hear more about the alligator story.
Like, we need to talk. We need to talk about the fact that Xander has been eye fucking her.
Oh yeah,
this whole time,
right in front of Cordelia.
Right in front of Cordelia. She's talking about her being naked at this one situation, and like Xander might as well just have his hand in his pants at this point. It's gross.
So yeah, because one of the stories Faith is telling is about wrestling of an alligator in Missouri. The first story she was telling was about how she she rescued a school bus full of church kids while she was naked, because Vamps attacked the bus in front of her house while she was sleeping, and she sleeps naked.
It just annoys me that how gross they make Xander all the time.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like, dude, you're sitting next to an extremely attractive woman who is way out of your league, but you can't be happy with that.
Right.
You know, I don't get it.
So yeah, so she asked Buffy what her hardest kill was, and like I said, Buffy flashes back to having to kill Angel to stop Akathla. But then she starts stammering about the three. But, and this, I'm counting this as a goof 'em up and oopsie. Buffy didn't kill the three. Buffy and Angel ran from the three to Buffy's house, and then Darla killed the three for failing the master.
Well, she killed one of them with her ice skate, didn't she?
No, that was one of the Order of Taraka.
Oh, excuse me for confusing them. Yes, okay. Yeah, that's when Darla came behind them each one at a time, and
yeah,
okay.
And then Willow and Oz kind of ask Faith her stance on werewolves, and Faith says as long as Oz isn't scratching her or trying to hump her leg, they're cool.
Yeah, and she's like, when she says, before she says that Faith looks at Buffy, and Buffy's like, long story. And then Oz goes, I got bit. and she goes, well, not that long of a story.
Right. So then we cut to,
Poor Giles.
yes, we cut to the library where Buffy is introducing Faith to Giles, and Giles confirms that there's a Watchers retreat going on in England, and he says that he laments about how great it is and everything. And
apparently there's one every year.
There's one every year, and he talks about how exciting and fantastic it is and what a privilege it is to be invited. And then he says, or so I'm told, because he's apparently never been invited.
Okay.
And this begins, I've said this before, and this is where it starts. This begins our trek down the path of the idea that the active Slayer's Watcher is low fucking man on the totem pole.
Okay, let's forget about Kendra and Faith. There's one Slayer. There's one Watcher for that one Slayer.
Right.
You would think he would be pretty high up the totem pole and fairly important to the grand scheme of things. However, like you said, this is the beginning of us seeing that he is apparently treated like fucking a leper.
I've mentioned this consistently through the course of the first 2 seasons, that we will eventually see that being the active Slayer's Watcher is like an entry level position or some
Right,
shit. And
right.
and this is the beginning of that, because we find out here that he's never been invited. He's been a Watcher since before he was Buffy's Watcher specifically. He comes from a lineage of Watchers. He's never been invited to the retreat.
And you would think, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I was going to say, so is it, well, what I was going to say is, I guess the argument could be made that the active Slayer's Watcher is too busy and too important to be called away to a Watcher's retreat, you know?
Yeah.
But he's clearly never been invited, even before he was the active Slayer's Watcher.
That's what okay. So okay.
So now the theory has to switch to, they just don't fucking like Giles.
Maybe that's it. We never really get a hard answer on that.
No.
All the way up to the end of this show, but you would think, okay, there's only like usually there's like one Slayer for like 20 or so years, if not, more, before they're killed or what, because they're almost always inevitably killed. So, in other words, there haven't been a shitload of Watchers who have gotten to be the Watcher of the Slayer. So you would think it's a pretty
prestigious thing within the council.
Prestigious, like, okay, you've earned this. We trust you. You're gonna take this girl under your wing and see her through this. No, apparently not. They're like, fuck you. They're like, oh, there's a new Slayer. That one died. Who do we hate the most that we can send to go be this girl's new Watcher that we can get rid of? That's all I can think.
Well, also, and we actually kind of got a hint of this with Kendra. They're apparently able to determine in some cases, who it could potentially be a Slayer. So presumably they've got, and in some cases that Watcher can go and start training that young lady in advance. Sometimes they have to stay out of their lives, but they keep an eye on them. And in some cases, like with Buffy, they don't know who it is until after she's called. So, like, there's presumably numerous watchers floating around out there across the world that could be the Slayer's potential watcher.
Well, I mean, Buffy's original watcher, who looked like a high school math teacher, if you recall, like he wasn't killed. No, he just vanished, and like she moved to Sunnydale, and boom, she meets Giles. I guess
No, he was killed by Merrick. Or no, his name was Merrick. He was killed by. Hey, I'm sorry.
So I don't know. So I do not understand this Watcher organization at all. There are so many things I don't understand, and at other times you're like, how poorly run is this organization?
Right. Well, and I'm amending, like, based on this scene alone, I'm amending it from that the position of being the active Slayer's watcher is like low man on the totem pole to just the Watchers Council does not like Giles.
That could be what it is.
That could be what
it is. Maybe they don't like the fact they don't like his Ripper past, and maybe they don't fully trust him.
It's possible.
And you know,
then why give him the active Slayer?
Right. You would think if they didn't trust him, they would say, "Listen, you're going to be a librarian at our headquarters."
Right.
We're going to keep you close to keep an eye on you.
Right.
You know, so I don't know, man. That's what I'm saying. Like any argument you come up with or reasoning you come up with in your head, there's a direct contradiction to it. And it's like, well, then I don't understand. I don't think Joss understood. Like he was just making shit up as he went along instead of thinking this stuff out.
Right.
Like ahead of time.
Also, this is our first confirmation that there is a Watchers Council.
Yeah. We knew there was an organization prior to this, but this is definitely our confirmation of there being the Watchers Council.
Right. Faith and Giles meet, and Faith says that if she knew that they came so young and, what does she say, young and hunky, she would have requested a transfer sooner. Yeah. And Buffy's all like, raise your hands if you. And did you notice Willow didn't raise her hand?
No, and Xander started to, but then was like, yeah.
Yeah, Willow didn't raise her hand. And
you looked at Willow closely, and she was like,
right.
But won't play it all on the audio version. That they'll have no idea what that.
But yeah, not only does she not raise her hand, but she's kind of looking googly-eyed at Giles.
Yeah. I've always thought she had the horns for.
And I was like, Miss Rosenberg, same girly, same.
Samesies.
Buffy invites Faith to her house for dinner.
You mean Willow invites Faith to Buffy's house for dinner?
Yeah. And then Buffy asks Willow for help studying for her next makeup exam, and Buffy pretty much gets ignored by everyone. Like they're more interested in hanging out with Faith right now.
That's because they've got to have faith.
You got to have faith. Faith and faith and faith. So that Faith and Xander and Willow leave the library, and Buffy sits down, and
Willow left with Giles because they are going into his office to discuss. Wow. Yeah. You okay? Never mind. You took it out of me. I don't even know what I was going to say now.
Giles starts asking her more questions and more details about what happened when she had to kill Angel, and Buffy kind of gives the same answers she gave before and leaves the library. And we cut to Willow and Xander showing Faith around Sunnydale High, and they're pretty much going down a memory lane of all the bullshit they've gone through.
Yeah, I was waiting for it to be like, and there's the door that's unlocked that goes to the basement where shitloads of people die.
there's the basement door that's never locked and anyone has access to it.
And lots of people have either died or been maimed or otherwise fucked up down there. But the door's still there and it's still unlocked.
Yes.
So feel free to check that out later if you want, Faith.
Yeah, they're taking a stroll down memory lane of all the bullshit that's happened to them there, and Xander's like, this is where Angel almost killed Willow, and Willow's like, that's where Spike and his gang almost slaughtered us all on parent teacher night, and over there's where I got drug into a muddy grave.
And then fucking Xander's like, over there's where I was peeping around the corner. Or never mind.
Right.
And that's the hole I drilled in the wall to peep into the girls' locker room because I'm Xander.
Right. Sorry.
Should be.
So Faith goes to get some water, and she ends up bumping into Scott, and they start talking and flirting, and it's about that time Buffy shows up and she sees the two of them kind of flirting with each other, and Willow starts talking about how Faith and Scott might hit it off, and she agrees with Faith that Buffy needs to find some fun, and Buffy ends up going over to Scott and Faith and dragging Faith away from Scott. And then we cut to what appears to be Mr. Trick and his Mr. Trick's hideout. And what's happening there, Jeremy?
There's a fire. And I don't mean a little fire. This is a straight up inferno. I'm talking bodies are just, it's so hot, bodies are just disintegrating. Fucking dude. It's a goddamn disaster. You ever seen Backdraft?
You ever seen the Towering Inferno?
Child's Play.
Child's Play.
No, anyway.
Fun quick side note. I did not like this is so weird. I did not like Kurt Russell as an actor until I saw Backdraft.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was so good in Backdraft, I went back and watched other Kurt Russell movies, and I was like, this is better than I gave it credit for.
I can't think of how many Kurt Russell movies were there before that? I mean, like Overboard and
Escape from New York.
Oh, Escape. Yeah, I never was into that. What was the name of that character? Snake or something like that?
Snake Plissken.
Yeah, those were always stupid to me, but anyway, we're getting way off topic. We're basically in another dark, dank warehouse type layer, and Mr. Trick is filling in, who appears to be the boss guy. Wait, they've revealed his face? No, haven't revealed his face.
Well, they reveal his face here, but not his name.
In this scene, yeah.
Yeah.
They show his face. Well, Giles goes into more detail later, so I'll wait. We'll wait and explain why he looks this way later. So anyway, I don't even know how to break this down quickly. In a nutshell, they're after Faith. They didn't realize that there was already another Slayer, Buffy. And he's like, I don't give a fuck how many Slayers there are. I'll kill them all. And Mr. Trick's like, okay, Chill out, bro. And he's got this huge, this boss guy has got this huge, gross, fucking deep scar like on his face. And he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill her, pay her back for what she did to me. And you're all like, okay. And Mr. Trick is basically telling him, well, as soon as the sun goes down, we'll be on it. We'll be out there. We'll find her. And then there's a knock at the door, and Mr. Trick puts on this really long oven glove that goes up to like his shoulder. And he's like, supper's here, guys. And he opens the door, and it's a pizza guy, and he just grabs the pizza guy and pulls him inside, and they start eating him. He had to put the glove on because it's sunny outside. Then we cut to Buffy's, and they're having dinner. And Mom and Faith are talking, and Faith's talking about how she loves slang and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, Buffy never talks like that. And I'm like, yeah, because Buffy's not fucking crazy. This chick is obviously fucking on something. And at one point, she's like, oh, let me refill your drink for you, Faith. And Mom goes off to the kitchen, and Buffy follows. And basically, Buffy's just saying, I'm just not getting my life back. I'm not looking for somebody to come in and fucking borrow half of it. And, at this point, Mom has to get a little bit stupid, and she always has to get a little dumb. And she's like, well, being there's another one now, maybe you can just let her take over. Like it works that way.
You see, though, I didn't think that was dumb. I thought someone that's not familiar with the whole thing, like, it's kind of a logical, like, well, if she's a Slayer, then maybe you could, like, step aside a little bit and maybe not, which isn't it's not something that hasn't been mentioned before. Buffy literally said the same thing when Kendra came onto the scene.
Yeah, it's true. I guess that's fair enough. But I'm always like, why do they always have to have Mom, just have her cool for like a whole episode. Like have her make sense and be cool for a whole episode. Just one episode.
Well, and again, like I said, this didn't irritate me about Joyce. Like this seemed like it wasn't, like I said, like with her not being as well versed in the Slayer thing and whatnot, like I didn't feel like it was out of line, or like it was kind of an actual mom thing for a change.
Yeah, and she's like, well, you're going to go to college next year and blah, blah, blah. And Buffy basically has to cut her off and say, Mom, it doesn't work that way. And then she kind of, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, she kind of slips up and says, you only get a new Slayer if the old Slayer dies. And Mom's like, oh, and Buffy has to spill the beans that she actually did die at one point for a minute or so. And that totally tweaks Mom out, and she starts pacing the floor, and she's really freaking out now. And Buffy hugs her and, tells her that everything's going to be fine. And, she's good at her job and she knows how to take care of herself and yada, yada.
What I was going to say is, Buffy says that's not how it works. But why? Like, I don't like, realistically, why not? Like, Buffy's right. You only get a new Slayer when one dies. Well, now technically 2 Slayers have died. We have a new Slayer. Why can't Buffy just kick back and be a normal teenager?
Who would stop her?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
I guess you're led to believe that Buffy's just too
she's too much the hero.
She's grown very responsible.
Right.
She's a hero, and she can't just let someone else.
She's very much thrown herself into the idea that this is her burden and her burden alone to carry.
Right. Which I don't think is necessarily the right way to think of this, but.
And I think that's where part of her issue with Faith in this episode comes from, even though it's never explicitly stated.
Yeah. Yeah. So this next scene, I found this whole the first minute or so of this scene so fucking weird. So it's Buffy and Faith, and they're patrolling that night. This is like after dinner, and Faith starts talking about Angel, that she knows about Angel and the whole thing, and they just start fucking verbally fucking sparring. Like they go from like Buffy goes from like so on Faith to like I'm ready to beat the fuck out of you in like 1 minute. It just seems very strange to me
Really?
how quick, yeah, like how quickly things went from seemingly fine to she's like, you're a fucking cunt. I'm gonna strangle you in this fucking construction facility, you bitch. And I don't know. It just seemed odd to me.
No, I didn't find it odd at all. So Buffy's already uneasy with how personable Faith has been with her friends and her mom and with Giles. And now Faith is standing there presuming to know what went down with Buffy and Angel, and everything encased in that situation. No, I didn't find it weird at all that Buffy went off on Faith like that.
So you're saying she fucked around and found out?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can buy that.
But would you buy it for $1?
No, I'll buy it for 78 cents on sale, but I won't pay full price. And then some vamps attack. And so they start fighting. Buffy seems to be fighting 2 or 3 vamps at the same time, while Faith is fighting like 1 vamp. And there's a couple of instances where Buffy needs a little bit of backup, and Faith has got this 1 vamp down, and she's just pummeling it, just punching him. I'm like, you can't kill him that way. Stick some wood in his chest, chick.
How long have you even been a Slayer?
Yeah, like, have you ever even killed a vampire? So Buffy finally finishes off her little squad, and then she gets over to Faith and pulls Faith off of that one, and they finish it off. And she's like, the fuck is wrong with you? Like, I needed some fucking backup. Like, that's not how you... The job is, kill vampires and kill demons, not pummel them, and pummel them. And Faith, of course, is like, well, if you're not into, doing some damage to a vampire, maybe you're in the wrong line of work. And it's just like, okay. And then we cut to Buffy. I think it's the next day. Yeah, it's got to be the next day. And she's talking to Giles and trying to explain that Faith was off the fucking rails. And Giles is understanding, but he seems to be giving Faith a bit of leeway. And he starts talking about the retreat again. He's like, I like it. I miss kayaking. I like a good kayak. And Buffy's like, come on. And he's like, okay, so tell me about these vampires, their clothing, any medallions, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, how did she say that? She said, well, I heard one that kept saying, I serve.
What was it? I kiss something. What was it?
Well, anyway, she was saying it wrong, and he recognizes the name. How do you even say the thing's actual name? Kakistos?
Kakistos. Oh,
yeah.
Buffy says to the vampire kept saying, or mentioned something about kissing toast. He lived for kissing toast.
Yeah, kissing toast. Yeah, and it's Kakistos. But Giles recognizes the name, so he rushes off to the library and looks it up and finds that he's one of the most brutal vampires around, and he's so old that his hands and feet have become cloven. Now, pause. Are we to believe that this vampire is older than the Master?
That was a question I had when watching the episode, and I did a little digging, and we can actually discuss that a little bit in our monsterology,
Okay.
or we can talk about it now if you want.
We'll discuss it then. I just don't. They create a lot of questions and they leave it unresolved and unanswered, and it's
Right.
Anyway, not a fan of it. But anyway, so yeah, that's why his hands are cloven. Then they're wondering, if the two are connected because Faith and Kakistos both showed up to Sunnydale at the same time, and so they kind of make up a couple of plans and they head off their separate ways. And on her way out, Buffy runs into Scott, who is again trying to ask her out on a date. To the the Buster Keaton, what is it, like a
Buster Keaton Film Festival.
Film festival, yeah. And she's like, okay, she's like, you know what, okay. And he's like, well, here, I got you a little gift, and the guy told me that this signifies friendship, and I really want to be your friend. And he hands her this little box, and she opens it, and it's a ring just like what Angel gave her. And she's like, oh, and she drops it, and it's super melodramatic there for a second. And Scott's like, oh, I'm sorry, never mind. And he rushes off, and Giles shows up, and he's like, are you okay? And Buffy's like, no, and she just throws herself out of a fucking window just out of nowhere. And Giles is like, wow, okay, I guess I'm just watching one Slayer from now on. Wow.
He's like, well, that was a bit dramatic.
And
then he's like, well, shit, are they gonna make me watch the next one too?
Yeah, because there's gonna be another one coming around soon. Oh god, it's Willow. So Giles informs Buffy at that point that Faith's Watcher is actually dead. And you're like, what?
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
I don't know, like, obviously hindsight, rewatching, we know it's not the case, but I vividly remember watching this episode when it originally aired, and when Giles said Faith's Watcher was dead, my immediate thought was she killed him. She killed her Watcher. She's evil.
Yeah, mine too. And I thought, ooh, she's gonna be like the big bad because of the season. She's gonna be like this rove fucking like serial killing Slayer who's like, how the fuck are you gonna
how do you rein that in?
Yeah, how are you gonna rein that in? So I was like, oh shit. But as we find out, because in the next scene, Buffy goes to this rundown fucking hotel and finds Faith there, and Faith is trying to negotiate with the manager of the place because she's late on her $18 a day, which I'm like, in California, yeah, fucking right. Like more like $318 a day. Anyway, so Buffy's there and she closes the door behind the guy.
Oh,
and,
just real quick.
Yeah.
Faith is ready to blow that guy, right?
That's what I thought, because she's always like starts flirting with him, and she's like, well, and he's like, listen, it's not like I own the place. I gotta do what. And she's like, yeah, but I bet you can someday own it. And
right.
I was like,
and then he says, not if I keep listening to broads like you.
Yeah, and I was like, uh-oh. I was waiting for the porn music to cue in at that point.
Right.
What do you mean listen to broads like me?
Which to me indicates like he's been in this situation before, and girls like Faith have paid in ways
he was already unzipping.
Have paid in ways that don't involve cash, and that's why he will not one day own that motel.
Right, because exactly. So Buffy confronts Faith at that point,
Also, I'm sorry. Also, this is the hotel Joyce turns tricks in too, right?
Yeah, she has a room that's especially hers.
Okay.
It's called this place is called the Herpy Hotel, so obviously obviously mom has a room, ground
Permanently booked.
level only.
Right.
The knees are a little too old to be going up and down steps all the time. So,
Right.
but yeah,
The-
it's definitely the Herpy Hotel where mom goes.
Those knees don't go up steps; they only kneel.
They only go down, buddy. Only down. Then she has to have a hand to get back up. So Buffy confronts Faith at that point about her watcher being dead, and this Kakistos. And at that point, Faith freaks the fuck out, grabs her bag, starts packing shit, and she's like, "What the fuck? What are you doing?" You know? She's like. So long story short, Faith actually witnessed Smelly Toast eat like fuck her, like kill her watcher, like fuck her all up. Apparently it was a female watcher, and I guess she says he did things that like she can't even describe, and it never does exactly say how she puts that big scar on his fucking face, but she apparently does that and gets, escapes, runs away, and that's what she's been running from this whole time, is from him.
Can I, real quick, something that did bother me about this scene, Buffy, it's basically at one point like chastising Faith for running from her problems, i.e.
Yeah.
Kakistos. And I was like, I'm sorry. Did you not just spend a whole summer in LA running from your fucking problems?
Yeah. Well, at least she wasn't running from a bad guy, like hiding out from a bad guy.
Right. Like, I get that, but still, like, the idea, like, the basic idea behind it is the same. And I was just kind of like, I'm not sure, like, I get it. I understand why you did it, Buffy. And I certainly don't blame you, unlike your
Sounds like
cunt,
you are blaming her.
unlike your cunt mother and your bitch ass friends.
Yeah,
But
we're definite bitch asses.
But I'm not really sure you're the best person to be lecturing Faith right now about not running from your problems.
Yeah, see, I took it as more of not running from, like, I don't think Buffy can imagine running from a bad guy. Like, she's like, you can't run from this. Like, you're the Slayer. You're a Slayer. You gotta do what you do and slay this fool. And I think that's more what, I don't think she's really meaning running from your problems in general. I mean, I could be wrong. Fuck, I don't know. I don't know what was in the writers' minds, but I took it as to mean you're a Slayer. You don't run from the bad guys. You face them, and you win or you lose. Right. That's what I took it to mean.
Well, we'll circle back to this when we finish up here, because I kind of have a reason why that just jumped out to me.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Oh, I forgot to mention the part where we find out that Trick is a pedophile.
Okay.
In the couple of scenes ago, when they were in, when he puts the glove on to pull the pizza guy in to eat him, he has this line, and you can go back and fucking listen if you don't believe me. He has this line where he's talking about that he wants to get a 13-year-old Filipino girl's blood. That's the best.
No, he does not say that. He says to Kakistos, you want the blood of a 13-year-old Filipino girl? I can have her here in 24 hours.
Well,
that's what he says.
Well, obviously, then he's had this himself. So he's a pedophile. Trick's a pedophile. Let's just agree he's a pedophile. We all know the truth.
We're not going to agree to that.
Come on now. Let's just admit that Trick, I know he's your favorite character, but let's just admit who
he's not my favorite character. But if anything, Kakistos is the pedophile, because Trick says
is just weird.
Because Trick says he could have that for him. So,
but obviously he's done this before for himself, or he wouldn't know how to procure this.
Maybe he's had to do it for Kakistos before.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Trick's a pedophile.
Of course you do.
At that point, they hear a knock at the door. Faith and Buffy do, and they look through peephole, and she's like, "Oh, it's that manager guy again." They open the door, and nope, it's Smelly Toast and his henchman. They were just holding the dude up to the peephole. They drop him; he's dead. And shit hits the fan. So Buffy and Faith, they book, they dive out a back window, they get run through some alleys and into a place that's come to find out is the lair. He's basically funneled them into his lair, and they big fight. You know, Buffy's fighting henchmen and whatnot, and Faith's getting fucking just housed by Smelly Toast, and it's like she's just like scared to death of this guy, and every time he punches her with those big cloven hand prosthetics he's wearing, it just looks so dumb to me. I'm like, oh god, he looks like a human horse, like a furry, and he's like, I don't know, it's really weird. But so finally, it looks like he's going to take Faith out, and so Buffy runs over after finishing off her henchman. Buffy runs over and she just starts laying waste to fucking Smelly Toast. Like he's got like no answer. She's just like punch after kick after punch. She's just fucking wrecking him, and then pow, stakes him, and nothing happens. And he fucking swats her away, and it's like, what? So they continue fighting, and then boom, she sticks another stake in him. Nothing happens. And he's like, ah ha ha, I guess you'll have to have a bigger stake. Well, at that point, Faith pulls this like wooden pillar looking thing. It looks like a literal wooden pillar, and she just sticks it through him. And it goes through him like butter, and boom, he's dust. And it's like, well, goddamn, you took him out, no problem. What have you been so scared of all this time? So the master was easily staked and killed. I don't know. This is a fucking clusterfuck with this guy. So we cut back to the library, and it's like the next day, and Giles is telling Buffy that the Watcher Council has agreed to allow Faith to remain in Sunnydale indefinitely, and for him to act as both of their Watchers until another Watcher is sent for Faith. And if I was Giles, I'd be like, pay increase. Like now I have to take care of two. I'm gonna need a little extra cashish. Thank you. So they're talking and whatnot, and Buffy finally reveals to the others that Willow's spell actually did work that day, and Angel's soul was restored, but it was just a little too late, and the vortex had already opened, and at that point she had to kill Angel to save the world. She gives him the whole rundown, and Giles is like, well, you know, that'll help with the spell, thank you. And Buffy leaves, and Willow asks Giles about the spell, and again says she can help with it, and Giles reveals that there is no spell, that there never was, which you're left to believe he's been doing this to try to get this out of Buffy to help her heal, move on.
To help her put it behind her. Right. Two things about this scene. The first is, so this ties directly back to why I think Buffy's talking to Faith about not running from her problems is deeper than just you're the Slayer, this is a bad guy, you don't run from bad guys.
Well, yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Like in other words, she's learned.
Because right before Buffy breaks down and tells them that Angel was cured, she says, and Giles says that he was given permission to look after them both. Buffy says, good. She really came through in the end. She had a lot to deal with, but she did it. she got it behind her. And then that's when she tells them. So that's why I think it was more about just running from your problems and the trauma, for lack of a better term, in general, than just you're the Slayer, you don't run from bad guys.
Right.
And the second thing is, I fucking love Giles.
Yeah.
And the fact that he spent this entire episode like lying, for lack of a better term, to Buffy
Right.
about this spell to try and get her to talk about what happened, because he knows that that's the only way she's truly going to be able to get past it and put it behind her, is if she shares all of it and
Get
is
to-
open with it.
Yep. Well, I mean, Giles is fucking one of the best characters. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Giles knows everything. But so then we cut to Buffy. She's waiting outside of a classroom, and the bell rings, and the kids come out, and it's Scott. She's been waiting on Scott, and they reconcile and make plans to go out later. And she says, well, she's just got one thing to do that night, and then after that, she's good to go. And then we cut to her going into the mansion that Angel and Spike and Drew were using as their hideout. And she goes over to the spot where she had to kill him. And she leaves the ring there that he had given to her, right on the spot where she had to kill him, and says goodbye. And she leaves. And then the ring starts to kind of shake and...
Well, first we fade to black.
Well, yeah, we fade to black like that's it. But
Right.
then the black kind of fades back in, and the ring is shaking, and kind of lights coming off of it and everything. And then this bright white light like kind of flashes, and this naked fucking body drops and hits the ground. And they look up, and it's Angel. He's back, looking all kinds of fucked up. Like he's like shivering. He looks like wet and greasy, and again, obviously naked. And he's like, and then boom, episode.
Yes. Did you happen to notice when after he falls out of the
Ether.
portal to from the hell dimension, and he's laying there naked, he appears to not have his tattoo.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yep.
I was too busy looking at his enormous cock.
I had to rewind it because at first I was just focused on that ass.
Yeah, because I mean, when he's laying there, the dick is just, it's like a full arm length away. It's just laying there like a hose. Yeah, it's like a baby's arm holding an apple. So
Wow.
uh
All right, that is the end of our episode. Let's talk a little bit about this. We'll put it here in Monsterology. Let's talk a little bit about Kakistos and his cloven hooves.
no, I don't want to.
No, we're going to.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, in general, the Monsterology is more vampires. You know, the usual shtick. Kakistos is so old that his hands have their cloven hooves, his hands and feet. So you had asked the question earlier: is Kakistos older than the Master?
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious about the same thing and what the implications of that are. So I dug around, and I actually found what Joss himself had to say about Kakistos v. the Master.
Mm-hmm.
And Joss says Kakistos was old. That causes the clovenness. Remember the Master? He looked like a bat, a lot like a bat. The idea is the older they get, the more animalistic they become, but not necessarily the same animal. That's my theory.
Oh, okay.
So
So they could have been the same age, or
Right. They could have, either one could have been older or whatnot. They could have been the same age, you know.
But explain to me why he was such a wimpy, weak fucking bitch.
Who?
Smelly Toast.
Well, I mean, it's not like the master was, uh,
Yeah, but the master had so many different like the powers, like the whole fucking hypnotism shit, and he was
well, yeah.
just way more powerful. Like this guy was weak. Oh, and we forgot to mention during that fight when Buffy's fucking Smelly Toast up, we see Tick, Trick, and another vampire, and he's like, Trick's like, if we don't help the master, he's liable, he's liable to lose. And then they look at it, and then he turns and he goes, "Our prayers are with him," and they leave.
Right.
So yeah, I love Trick, but
but so anyway, I actually like this idea that the older a vampire gets, the more animalistic its appearance takes. And
but what's animals have to do with vampirism?
well, and here's the thing. So to extrapolate on Joss's theory a little bit, so vampires they're demons.
Okay.
They're
All right.
And so we know from the lore that vampires are basically hybrids. Like at some point in the past, the first demon fed on a demon fed on a human, and vampires came out of that.
Sure.
Well, what's to say that there aren't different lineages? So
yeah, like the lineage he's from fed on a horse.
Right. So let's say the demon that the master's lineage is from
fed on a bat.
Took on was a demon that resembled a bat. He fed on a human, yada yada, blah blah. Kakistos's lineage, that original demon had an appearance similar to whatever. Maybe what more people perceive the image of a demon being: cloven hooves, cloven hands, that kind of thing.
Cloven penis.
Right, cloven penis.
Yes.
That's a medical condition. I have that.
Right. I'd heard.
So
you need to find someone with a cloven vagina, and you'll be
right. I'll be fine.
Blissful matrimony.
So yeah, that's kind of my expounded upon part of Joss's theory here. And I kind of like that idea.
I do too. No, I do too. I have no problem with that at all. I just felt like they kind of they built him up to be like, oh shit, they're like, and then he's just easily fucking owned, like just housed.
Right.
And as like, okay. And they don't explain why he was so hard to stake, because she like staked the master with like a toothpick. Oh no, she threw him over the thing and he fell on that that twisted wood shit below them. But still, it was like, I just wish they would say, like, as the series went on, like, ooh, if this is an old vampire, they're going to be hard to stake. Like that would have been cool. Yeah. Like the younger they are, the easier they are to stake, kind of thing.
Right. Our body count this week is 9.
113, I heard.
No, 9.
Well, counting the Inferno. You forgot the Inferno that from earlier.
Right. You're right. I did.
Deaths in that.
Oops.
Oopsie.
Our music this week was "Going to Hell" by the Brian Johnstown Massacre from the album "Strung Out in Heaven," released by TVT Records in 1998.
Hell yeah! Sorry.
The Background by Third Eye Blind from the album Third Eye Blind, released by Elektra Asylum Records in 1997.
That's the first like big band I've heard you mention in all these. Third Eye Blind. When was that? I probably don't know the song anyway.
Blue Sun by Darling Violetta from the album Bathwater Flowers, released by Opaline Records in 1998. and Cure by Darling Violetta from the album The Kill You EP, released by Opaline Records in 2000. And yes, I know that is 2 years after this episode aired. The episode featured this song, but the song wasn't released on any albums until 2 years later.
That happens a lot.
It does. And that does it for those. So, Jeremy,
Yes, sir.
tell me your rating out of, and your final thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
How many
Mhm.
naked angels falling from a portal from a hell dimension do you give this episode?
There can't be enough naked angels, if I'm going to be honest. Let's
Daddy.
see. Daddy. This is another one where I've written down my rating already, and then after recapping it, I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 3. I was going to go 3.5, but I feel like 3.5 is a little much. I had some issues with this episode. Nothing like major, nothing big, just little. And it's a lot of, I realize that I'm a nitpicker. I know this. And so a lot of it's nitpicky stuff. So it's not even anything worth bringing up. There were definitely no major flaws. It was a fun episode. It went very quickly, I thought. Like it flowed very quickly. There wasn't like a shitload of, boring dialogue or drawn out stuff. It flowed very nicely. And it was just one of those little fun episodes. I think it loses points with me with Smelly Toast and kind of how he was built up as like pretty significant, adversary. And then he just wasn't. He was just wearing a muumuu, and he just got housed. There was nothing. It was just like, oh, well, that was a big popcorn fart. And I think that's where it loses points with me. But other than that, I think it was a great episode. It's getting Buffy back into her routine, her life, and then of course the huge reveal at the end that holy shit, Angel's back. So now you're like, ooh, fuck, I can't wait for next week's episode. So yeah, it's a solid 3 for me. Solid 3. James.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I need a response. How many pieces of smelly toast do you give this episode? And give us your final thoughts.
For me, this episode was a 4.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I wish this should have been the season premiere, to be honest.
It was better. It was certainly better.
It was better than the season premiere. Yeah, it was better than Anne. In my opinion, it was better than Dead Man's Party. Yeah, it really should have, in my opinion, been the season premiere. It introduces us to the major players for the rest of the season. It kind of lays the groundwork for the major story arcs for the rest of the season. Yeah, I think this should have been the season premiere. That being said, I don't know if that had been the case, how you deal with, wanting to show Buffy, what she was doing, over the summer when she had run away, the repercussions of her coming back, like we saw in Dead Man's Party. I don't know where that fits in to the season if you do open the season with this episode. So I understand, the dynamics of doing it that way, but yeah, I mean, this was a much better episode in my opinion than both of those.
Plus, which I failed to mention, we're introduced to Faith.
Right.
Oh.
It's just it's the it puts everything back into the status quo, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's everything we previously had loved about a Buffy episode. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, the introduction of Faith, who, as fans know, goes on to become a major player um, in the entirety of the Buffyverse going forward. Um, uh, we both seem to be practically in love with Mr. Trick.
Oh yeah, I've always liked Trick. When I first saw him, I was like, oh gosh, I forgot all about him. Yeah, I was like, yes.
And of course, the return of Angel. Yeah, and just the Giles continues to be my favorite character, and I like we saw it in the first two seasons, but I think they're really, I don't want to say bringing it to the forefront, but they are playing up more, I think, this season so far. Giles's um, love for Buffy, his fatherly love for Buffy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I teared up. I remember tearing up the first time I ever watched this episode, and I teared up again rewatching it now at the end when Willow's like, I could still help you with that spell, and Giles is just like, there was never any spell, and walks away. And you kind of let it sink in then that like he was just trying to get Buffy to talk about it with them and you know uh, put it out there so that she could deal with her feelings and move past it.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a solid 4 for me.
All righty. Do you know what episode we're gonna do next week?
Next week I believe is Beauty and the Beasts.
That's season 3, episode 4, Beauty and the Beasts.
Yes.
James.
Yes, sir.
How do our legions of fans, how would they get in contact with us?
They don't.
Okay. All
They
right,
don't.
fair enough.
No.
We are hidden. We are in the Fortress of Solitude, and you are unable to contact us.
Right. No. They can go to BuffyRevisited.com, and they will find links to our Facebook and our YouTube. On our YouTube channel, you can watch the video version of this very podcast that you are listening to right now, which in my opinion, this one.
Wait, is this now or is now?
Now is later, but it is before.
Okay. I got you.
And I'll be honest with you, I listen to this podcast, this very one we're recording right now, every Monday. No, I listen to the podcast every Monday, and I enjoy listening to it. But my preferred method, honestly, is often to watch it, because I think there's a lot of nuance that just listening to it, people miss.
You don't get,
right.
Yeah.
You don't get to see us are interacting with each other, our facial expressions, that kind of stuff. So I do urge people tweaking our nipples. So I do urge people to, if you are a solid listener of the podcast, and you haven't checked out the video version on YouTube, go check it out. But regardless, they can reach out to us there, in the comment section of the videos. The other link will take you to our Facebook page where you can send us messages. You can comment
and that
on.
really is the best way. Either that or email really is the best way to contact us, because those are monitored pretty closely.
Right. And so's the YouTube.
Or yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Or reach out to us in the Facebook comment section on any of our posts.
And don't forget onlyfans.com/nipples galore.
Yes. As Jeremy.
OnlyFans.
I don't know. As Jeremy previously mentioned, you can email us. There's a link on our website for that. It is buffyrevisited@gmail.com. Feel free to email us to talk about any specific episodes of Buffy or Angel you want to talk about, or either of the series as a whole, or the Buffyverse in general. We would love for you guys to reach out to us on any of those methods, so we can talk about the Buffyverse with you guys. We say that pretty much every episode. We do sincerely mean it. We love this universe as much as we may joke about it or even tear it down a little bit sometimes.
Land-based it.
Right, we do love it, and we would honestly love to have serious conversation with other like-minded fans about this universe. Get your thoughts and your opinions and your theories about what's going on in all of these episodes. So please reach out to us in any way you see fit.
Please do. Don't soon. I fear James is going to harm himself. He might take that twisty straw and just cram it up his nose into his cranium.
Right into my brain. So right into my brain.
Right into the
Jeremy's gonna get a phone call from someone and be like, "Bra shoved a crazy straw right up his nose into his brain and he's dead."
The medulla oblongata. Right, everybody.
Yeah, reach out to us. Don't make this semicolon tattoo pointless.
That's right. That's right. Wow.
I'm kidding. Wow. This is a safe place for everybody.
Yeah. So again, as we said, next week will be season 3, episode 4, Beauty and the Beast. James, you have any final words?
No, just I think we mentioned it at the end of last week, setting up for Faith, Hope, and Trick this week. I do think with this episode, our season really kicks into high gear here.
Oh yeah, we've dropped down to 4th gear at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of the episodes right now for the season, and I don't think there's a bad one in them.
Lots of winners, I know that.
Yeah, like it could just be my memory failing me because it's been a while since I've watched them all, but
and your dementia.
Yeah, and my dementia. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything here that I remember as a bad episode. I think we're in for a run of 4s, potentially 5s here.
But you know us, I'm sure we'll find things to laugh about, and
there'll always be things to laugh about and nitpick. But that's what we do. But it's never going to change the quality of the episode
and our love for it,
right?
As well as our nipples.
Change our love for our nipples?
Yeah, it will never change our love for our nipples. Okay. All right. Well, with all that being said, thanks for joining us this week. We look forward to seeing you next week. I've been one of your hosts. I'm Army J.
I'm your other host, Ames J.
Bay. Ta-ta.